Daniel, we get a lot of new duck hunters that tend to follow Duck Hunting Fanatics. What's your number one tip for people who are just kind of getting started or just been exposed to duck hunting, maybe for the first time, maybe they've been doing it for a year or two, but they're hooked?
Okay. Well, as a newer duck hunter myself, just being in it for a few years, and what I've learned, I would say the number one tip, if I had to break it down to anything, is just be patient and don't look at the birds. When they're flying in and flying around, you have a habit to just want to stare at them and see what they're doing. Don't move. Let them do their thing. Just and stay positive too, because it can be discouraging when you got 20 ducks coming in. They look like they're going to cup up, and then they veer off somewhere else. Just stay patient, stay calm, don't move, don't look, and just relax.
Just relax.
That would be my number one tip. Just relax.
Just relax. I like that approach, man. Greetings, my friends. This is Eric Wilkes here with Duck Hunting Fanatics, and I have on the line with me here Daniel Mancine of Mancine Outdoors. And Daniel, you've been a youth mentor for quite a while now, and I know your whole thought process and it is creating a fun, understanding outlook on hunting and wildlife conservation. And more importantly, I think in there you also mentioned, public land conservation. And that said, let me take a step back. I want to thank you for your time and thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
What are you seeing as a new hunter? I know what are you seeing that you've learned just as a beginner up to this point?
Well, what I've learned, and I have a lot of guys that I work with, that are also enjoying the sport with me, and I got a few friends over in different areas around the Pacific Northwest, and we communicate quite often, and we're all kind of seeing the same thing, is that it's not too much of a strong migration right now, just based off of, how cold it's been and the lack of wind and extreme weather, And we notice it doesn't matter if it's gray outside or raining or crappy weather or sunny. If the wind's not blowing, you're not seeing any ducks, and that's one thing I've come to terms with. If it's not a windy day, just sit back, enjoy, or go scouting. But, it hasn't been too cold up north yet, and there's still a lot of food available for them. But, the last week it's gotten a lot colder up there, and we've been starting to see a lot more birds, a lot more, 2, 3, 4 man limits are happening, within hours of opening light. So it's starting to pick up for us, but, it's only going to get better as the weather gets colder up north. But, wind is your friend.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. Daniel, I want to circle back here because as a youth mentor, I'm purely curious, what got you into being a youth mentor, and more specifically, it sounds like, you're a youth mentor introducing youth into the outdoors. Am I correct on that?
Yes, sir.
So what got you
Absolutely.
into that?
Well, so I have children myself, and and it all goes back to when I was a child. Just my dad introduced me to it, and the enjoyment and the excitement, not so much for the harvest, but it's different. It's exhilarating, just being in the moment, being outside, and being able to disconnect. And there's a lot of value that being outside and being out of your element can bring to a human. And what I notice is that the youth need a lot of guidance. I was in the military for about 10 years. In the last few years, I got into recruiting, and I just got to deal with a lot of youth that didn't have guidance. They didn't have structure, and they didn't have foundation, and they didn't have respect. And that starts as a kid. And I think if we can introduce the children to something that's more important than a tablet or a phone, why it's important to have clean water, why it's important to preserve our public lands and trees and vegetation, why it's important to have animals, and why it's important to have, a balance between predators and prey, how that all works out. And it's going to work to an advantage for them, because in the future, they're going to have leadership skills too that they learned at a young age that can help them pass on the tradition. So,
Absolutely.
In a nutshell.
Daniel, that's awesome. I mean, that's absolutely perfect, my friend. Spoken like a true veteran of the industry, and secondly, thank you for your service. We certainly do
Oh,
appreciate
I
it. And
appreciate it.
I know all of us over here at Duck Hunting Fanatics, we try to thank any veteran anytime we get the opportunity. So we certainly do appreciate your service, and thank you for that. And
Thank you for that.
absolutely. And secondly, thank you for what you're doing for our youth. I know, that's a time commitment, and a lot of that is volunteer, and it takes a driven person to be able to devote that kind of time, and we certainly do value and appreciate everything you're doing from a youth perspective too. There's nothing like getting youth involved in the outdoors, and it takes time, number one, it takes patience. There's a whole lot of other things that go into it and making programs like that happen. So we appreciate that as well, and look forward to hearing more about it over the coming weeks. But let me get back to the focus at hand, because the whole point of this migration report, if you will, is just boots on the ground, eye in the sky, and I want to thank you for taking time to just give us some insight into what's going on in the Pacific Northwest. That said, I know you're fairly new to duck hunting. We're pretty transparent and pretty open about that with our community. But for you, what's your bucket list dream duck hunt? What area, what time of year, and why?
Honestly, I haven't really been able to put too much thought into a bucket list dream hunt, because anytime I get out, just to be out and be, essentially on the water, right, is a dream to me, because, we could be living somewhere else at a different time and we don't have the freedoms to do that. But if I had to put one place, is the Mississippi Flyway. There's millions of birds that come down there later in the season when it gets colder, January, February, and man, they have a blast down there, and they get to see a lot of different stuff and a lot of things that we don't get to see in our flyway over here. So if I had to put a place on it, I'd love to hunt the Mississippi Flyway.
My friend, you're going to have to come visit me then.
All right, I'm on my way. I'll see you tomorrow.
I'm over in Wisconsin, and yeah, I mean, you really hit the nail on the head. That late December, early January is when they start to show up, and then mid-January when it starts to get really cold. It's really just flat out amazing. I live about an hour and 15 minutes from that flyway, and it's absolutely a blast. There's just tons of ducks.
All right, I'll see you Monday.
I'm really looking forward to it. And for us, it's great because a lot of guys over here in Wisconsin, they hunt, obviously most of us as hunters, we don't hunt just one species or another. We hunt typically whatever's in season. And so it works out really great because the deer seasons over here, that's the big thing in Wisconsin. They all tend to end, at the end of December, 1st of January, and then you can get pretty serious about duck hunting. And a lot of times in late January, I mean, you're hunting ducks on ice, and that's okay, right? Because that's okay. And so at that point, it gets real fun because we have a lot of spring-fed ponds and so on and so forth out here. If you know where to look, and you've got open water, and guess where the ducks go when the ice and the rivers freeze over? They're looking for that open water if it's available. So it gets real interesting toward the end of January here. So, that said, and I'm gonna ask you a fill in the blank question. And it's not really a question, it's more of a statement. And so it goes like this. I never leave for the blind without my blank. What's the first thing that comes to mind?
My headlamp, because I've done it. I have a hard time finding where I'm going, man. Tripping, falling, cussing up a storm, decoys everywhere, all because I forgot my headlamp. So headlamp.
Gosh.
Headlamp.
That sounds like a rough morning.
It was probably my third time duck hunting. Didn't have my headlamp, heading out to this blind that I'd never really been to before. I trekked it once, and I hit every tree root, every brush, every branch on the way in there, man. I made it. I made it. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say what happened after that. I made it.
That'll be between you and I in a later conversation.
Oh, yeah, that was a good day.
No, I tell you what, though, I'm pretty sure if I forgot my headlamp, I'd turn around and I'd probably be the guy that went home and said, okay, Ray, because I just can't imagine, even with technology today, most of us have lights on our cell phones and so on and so forth. But, trying to set up a duck blind and get your decoys out and do all of that and have to hold a flashlight just doesn't even sound remotely interesting. I wonder
tried to do all that in the dark.
Right. It makes you wonder, like 30 or 40 years ago, like headlamps weren't really popular and they weren't really even around then. So it's like, what did Grandpa do back in the day? Right? So,
Grandpa just rolled up his jeans and said, "Tough it out, young buck."
yeah, pretty much. I mean, they just go out and do it in the dark, so it just, and that's the cool part is the evolution of technology, and LEDs and headlamps.
Oh, yeah.
It's just the convenience that some of these things, afford us now. I don't even want to know. I can't imagine looking back and trying to do all of that in the dark nowadays.
No. I mean, I remember the walkie-talkies we used to use on my first hunting trip were the size of my backpack that I have now. It's ridiculous. Technology is advanced. So, yeah, I don't know where I'd be without a headlamp now.
Right? Exactly.
I have 5 headlamps now. I've got 2 reserves in my truck, 1 in each hunting pack, and then 1 in my underneath my seat in my tool bag. So now I know I'll always have a headlamp.
You sound like me. You sound like me. I stash them every place that I can, so that way if I forget them, I know I got backups, and then I got backups of the backup just in case.
Yeah, Costco had a killer sale on some Duracell 500 lumen 3-pack for $15. So I picked up a couple of those. Yeah, they eat batteries, but you only need it for like an hour or two.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it don't matter.
Exactly.
Got a whole bunch now. I'm ready.
Yeah, especially when it's a reserve, right? I mean, it's like, okay, I can make it work for an hour on a reserve. We're good to go, man. Just keep it rolling.
Oh yeah, that's right. You should have saw that spread that I threw out there in the dark, man. It was bad.
You got birds too close, some are too far. Yeah, I can only imagine what that's like setting that up in the dark. That's great.
Yeah, I felt like John Elway throwing a couple of those deeps out there. Just send it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that one's gone. So,
it happens, man.
Headlamps.
Hey, you know what? If nothing else, at least there's somebody listening to this here who's going to learn from that. And, hopefully, if nothing else.
Probably thinking right now, I need to put my headlamp in my pack right now.
Exactly. Exactly. And I need to go buy a couple of reserves and just keep them in the truck so they don't go anywhere else.
Exactly. That's right. I've got a daughter that she'll run off with my headlamps. Next thing you know, I'm like, what is that flashing light upstairs? And she's on, off with my duck calls. It's.
That's fun.
All right. There's a headlamp.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, yeah. So let me ask. I mean, and I know you're kind of your season's just kind of getting rolling like everywhere else in the country. But if there's anything that you could change between, about your current season, your limit regulations in your area, what would it be and why?
There's a couple of things I would like to change just off of convenience factor alone is, I use a lot of jerk rigs, and I feel like I'm a puppeteer in that blind. Pulling this jerk rig, pull that jerk rig, get those spinny wings going on my lucky duck, and, sometimes I feel like if I'm attracting ducks, but I might just be moving too much. So, in my state, we're not allowed to use electronic decoys. So, I mean, I would like to change that, just for a convenience factor where I could focus more on, if birds do come in, I'm not having to scramble to drop all my puppeteer stuff and really focus on taking a good ethical shot on these ducks and making sure I'm not wounding them, but I'm just dropping them. But that, and also we have a bag limit of 1 pintail, and I enjoy pintail. That is my favorite tasting bird. I can do so many different things with it, and you get 1 a day. I would at least bump that up to 2, man, because that's a tasty bird, and and they're beautiful, and that would be the things that I would like to change about my season or any bag limit that I have, just alone, for one, convenience and being able to really focus on a shot, and then more of my tasty birds that I like.
Good answer. Good answer. No, thank you again for sharing, and I think all of us, the kind of what I've gathered so far, the number one answer has been, if I could just extend this season a little bit longer. And I think
you know what? I would second that. Yeah, if I could go a little bit further into February, man, I tell you what. But they probably do that for a reason, because then, there's all the birds, and guess what? All the birds are gone. So,
right, yeah,
because they're in my freezer.
We would all, as hunters, we would love for that to happen, right? But it's just, you know what? It's the seasons are the seasons for a reason, and we have to preserve our wildlife, and we have to make sure that there are birds to shoot next year, right? And so,
exactly,
we're understanding of it. Some of us may not like it, but and we may not agree with it, but we have to go with it, and we have to trust that the people that are setting those season dates at the state level are doing so for a reason. And so, it makes sense to me. And you know what?
They're saving all the pintails for themselves, and I don't like it.
Right, exactly. Right. But the end result is, when the season's over, guess what? Immediately when the season's over, we get to wake up the next day and guess what? We got something to look forward to, right? It's the start time. Exactly. The start of next season.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the next season. Duck season's over. I'm gearing up, getting ready for turkey season and spring bear.
Yep. Exactly. So, well, Daniel, what's the biggest change that you make from a hunting perspective at the start of your season and at to the end of your season?
Okay. So far this year, I've learned that birds can get used to what they see in the water a lot smarter than people really, project them as. I saw that decoy set up last week next to that same brush right there that looks like I keep getting shot right there. And, I think changing up your decoy strategy and your different types of setups and what you use really matters. And especially when you're playing the wind, if you got your runway, you got your landing zone completely off of the way the wind's blowing, or you got too many decoys or not enough decoys. I've had 10 birds land on 2 decoys, and I've had 1 bird land on 40 decoys, and it all depends on what the birds are doing. And I've had to adjust the strategy. I started off the season with a lot of decoys in the water, and as it's progressed, it's been less and less and less and less motion in the water because they become weary. So as the season progresses, I'm sure I'm going to end up with quite a few less, and that seems to be working for me. The less decoys I put out as the season progresses, the more birds I have interested in my spread. So that's just my personal outlook on that.
Yeah, no, and that's actually a great point. We just did here at Duck Hunting Fanatics a whole blog series around hunting with a small spread, and especially as the season progresses, like you just hit the nail on the head, right? They get wary. They've been shot at 500 times on their way south, and so on and so forth. And so a lot of times, we always say less is more, because it's just honestly giving them a different look. They're just something they're not used to seeing, and if you can make them look a small spread look safe and a small spread look content, and you don't have to do a lot of calling. Just do a little bit of calling so that they sound content and they're happy. Guess what? It's really pretty amazing what happens, and the results kind of speak for themselves. And for those of you that are new, it might surprise you. In all honesty, what might happen with a smaller spread. And so, a lot of guys are tuned to this, putting out, multiple massive spreads. And a lot of times you don't really necessarily need that. And so, that's a great point. And it just shows the progression, especially as you get later into the season. You don't need near as many decoys, and so that's a great point to bring up. So thank you for that.
No problem.
All right. Well, this can kind of concludes our episode here for tonight. We thank everybody so much for listening in here to Duck Hunting Fanatics. Again, I have Daniel Mancine with Mancine Outdoors. Daniel, is there a way that people could get in touch with you that you would want to share?
Absolutely, yeah. So I have an Instagram. It's just Mancine Outdoors. It's spelled MANCINE Outdoors, one word. You can reach out to me there if you or somebody you know is thinking about getting into the hunting lifestyle, because that's what it is. It's a lifestyle. It's not a sport. If you're interested in learning how to conserve, or you're interested in bushcraft or firearm safety, anything like that, feel free to reach out to me. My email is Mancine, so MANCINE.Daniel, DANIEL @gmail.com. Reach out to me anytime. So I'm not a guide, but if you want to spend some time with me out in the woods and really learn some things, and we can learn from each other, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to oblige.
There you have it right there, Daniel Mancine with Mancine Outdoors. And you've got all of his contact information, his Instagram account. Shoot him an email. Again, and I had the fortunate opportunity to spend a little bit of time with Daniel before this, right? He's a veteran from the Navy. So he talks the talk, he walks the walk, he knows what's going on. And you heard him mention firearm safety. And as you know, there's no one that's going to be better qualified than someone who's been through the United States military and in the Navy branch of service that's been trained on firearm safety. So take it for what it is. Get in touch with Daniel. We appreciate him. Daniel, thank you again so much for your time, brother. We definitely appreciate it. We look forward to having you on future episodes every week. And again, thank you for your service, and thank you for what you're doing for the youth. My pleasure.
Well, thank you for having me this evening. It's been fun talking to you. I really appreciate it, and I'll talk to you real soon.
Sounds great. Everybody have a great evening. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you all soon.